it's a Friday. It's a Friday, and there's a new Alice in Chains single that dropped today. Oh, Lord almighty, what have we got ourselves into? It's the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast, and you kind of get just the solo side of it this week, and presumably, well, maybe next week. We'll see what happens, but it is Kevin with you here on the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast. It might be, this might be the Kevin Robbins Ragecast. We'll see how that goes. Not because anything necessarily is going bad. It's just a Friday, and man, there's a lot of shit that kind of piles up on the doorstep that you have to kind of address and take care of. And this is one of them days. As I talked about, new Alice in Chains today. We'll get to that just a little bit later in the show. Doing the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast this time by my lonesome because Brandon has been off in the outer wilds of, or the wilds of outer Wyoming, I think is the way I've been putting that. And he will be back in the land coming up. Well, actually, I guess I can't use that because fucking people in Cleveland use that, the land. No, he'll be back. He'll be back here in the realm, I suppose. Let's do that because nobody else is claiming that shit. And he will be back 1 week from today, and might very well be doing this. The shoe might be on the other foot next week. You might get a solo podcast with him, because I am likely is not going to be out of action next week, thanks to a whole lot of funny medical procedures and all that other fun shit going on in my mouth. So that being the case, let's go ahead and throw back a few and kind of enjoy this Friday, the eve of Cinco de Mayo. Did you already open your Cinco de Mayo gifts? Oh, God dang. What are we drinking this week? Okay. Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast sponsor this week is Pendleton 1910 Canadian Rye Whiskey, put out through, imported and bottled by Hood River Distillers in Hood River, Oregon, which I think is probably still part of the United States, maybe. We'll I don't know. I'd have to double-check my info on that. So, anyway, we get into it, talk about our three favorite issues of the day. Before we do that, begs the question, hold on, let me throw back a shot. How's your week? Well, I'll tell you what, that is not bullet right. All right. I will say this. I've had kind of a rare week, nothing I can really talk about because it's all kind of work-related, kind of keep it under wraps kind of shit. Here's one thing, though, and this illustrates the part of New Mexico in which I live. It's a rural part, but I don't think that's a valid complaint as to why certain things go on the way they do. And here's what I'm talking about, is that there's like been this weird trash problem, like people just dumping just nonsense into ditches around here. I'm not talking like fucking bags of trash, although that is kind of common as well. I'm not talking about like people throwing their goddamn like McDonald's bags out the window when they're driving down the road, although that's also reprehensible. I'm talking about people throwing couches. Let's see. There's some other weird shit that you talk about appliances. Somebody throwing a washing machine in a ditch, and tires. Tires you can't hardly get rid of them. You can't pay anybody around here to take the things off. So instead of just like going, well, okay, I understand what the issue is, I'll just stack them up here on my own property. Fuck that. People just out dumping them on the side of the highway. And so, I don't know, the county's getting angry about it. But how much more white trash can you look than, hey, you know what? I'm just going to throw all my shit down the road. I don't give a fuck. All right. Again, I did warn you this might be the Friday Ragecast. So there's that. So anyway, so driving along home here just probably about an hour ago. So I come along. Somebody actually apparently had dumped out a whole shitload of insulation, presuming that Mother Nature's got to take it back and convert it back to something. No, that's synthetic. That's not going to turn back into some organic fucking material that Mother Earth takes back as one of her own, and then we could repurpose it later in terms of dirt. No, that shit is going to get covered up by sand dunes, and 1,000 years later you can dig down and there's that insulation that somebody so handily just dumped out of their shit. It drives me crazy because of the shit, the consequences. I'm not even one of these like tree huggers who's like, oh, we must protect Mother Earth. No, I just understand the things that kind of go I don't know, that get recycled and repurposed and shit you can't really repurpose, and you must like get rid of it. I don't know what they do with it, shoot it off into outer space. I don't know, maybe put it out in the middle of the ocean or some shit like that. I don't know. But I will say this, it's a little bit disheartening just to see the nonsense that takes place. There's somebody, well, it ain't my mess anymore. Fuck you. It's a crazy little problem, and it's not exactly an isolated one. It's across a lot of your more poorer areas in the West and the South. I'm aware. You don't catch this shit in Boston too often. I'm not saying they're better people. I'm just saying that they know what the sword of Damocles is if you do any kind of nonsense like that shit in the middle of their city. But and on top of that, also your bigger metropolitan areas have resources and means for you to get rid of your nonsense. But I don't know. I certainly am prone to digressing, and this might be the podcast where I just kind of lose my shit. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully you had a good week. Mine has actually gotten better and better as time goes by. And here's why, is I've kind of given up on Facebook as a means of communication, or any kind of meaningful communication anyway. So everybody that loves Donald Trump and everybody that hates Donald Trump, I've been kind of weeding them out and getting them out of my list. The worst enemy you can have might very well be between your ears. I think was a quote from Laird Hamilton years and years ago. And that's it. Just don't let your worst enemy be between your ears. And that's what I'm up against. I found myself getting like rage like you're experiencing right now every day. It was because these assholes are out there posting stuff constantly. Well, look at this. And this is a Tucker Carlson show says. I don't care. I don't care what Tucker Carlson has to say. I don't care what Joe Scarborough has to say. I don't care what any of these assholes have to say about the status of the way things are going. You know why I don't care? Because CNN has to pay their bills. So they're not going to say anything that would offend people on the left. Fox has to pay their bills. They're not going to say anything that's going to offend people on the right. So the whole goddamn process, it's rotten, because you're not going to get anybody's like, well, you know what? Let's get out the most unbiased news we can do. You know. I mean, you get people calling it, but it's a tagline and not necessarily anything they actually followed through with. Fox is what fair and balanced or some bullshit like that, which it's not either. It's unfair and unbalanced is what it is, but that's okay. At least recognize what the hell it is. And by the way, thanks for joining in on the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast, where I'm going to give you my slant, apparently, of things. But there are obviously things that just aggravate the living shit out of me. Facebook going on this whole time. The whole time they've known, they've been stealing people's shit, and just now kind of shucksing the whole thing. Like, data mining. Yeah, we didn't really know. There are these people that are wanting your info, and we're like, yeah, go ahead, help yourself. And now, now that's despicable. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. At least Twitter apparently went out and went, we might have put out some passwords out there. Everybody, change your shit right now. That was their message to start the day, which you can get angry about that and say, whoa, they should not have exposed my password to different random freaks out there. Yeah, you know what? But they did. At least they allowed you the opportunity to address it yourself. Facebook basically didn't tell anybody for a very long time that Cambridge Analytica was stealing everybody's fucking personal information off of Facebook. Basically because if you click, yeah, I'll take this quiz online. Yeah, and it was like, are you sure you're going to give up blah, 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 blah? Yeah, okay. And then you take their little quiz or whatever, and it's like, hey, that's cool. I identify as being a Great Dane or some shit like that. All right. And then as it turns out, you know what? They were actually utilizing other information that wasn't really out there, and Facebook let them do it. That's the thing. We're all a bunch of fucking guinea pigs, and we're really sniffing at the hand of the masters is what we're doing, because you can't tell me that Facebook and Amazon and Walmart and all the biggest corporations in America, they already have your information. You can't take it back. It's Pandora's box, and once it's out there, and you can't take it back. But Facebook would like you to think, yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. And Twitter would like you to think, yeah, just change your password. Well, at least I appreciate them being honest. Going, yeah, you're probably fucked, but here you go. Change your password, and they can't access your shit now. So I guess if I have to say kudos to anybody, at least kudos to Twitter for at least keeping everything at least on the table. Have I already warned you? It might be the Kevin Robbins the Kevin Ragecast. Oh, good Lord Almighty. All right, let's get into it. Mead, metal, and MMA. Mead side, let's talk a little bit about Mead and what we have going on there. We do have our 5 gallons of troublemakers just kind of sitting here and waiting. You know, we put off so much time, and I thought, you know what, Brandon's going to be back here in like a week. Let's just do it then. In the meantime, Silka and I were supposed to have been getting it done. But frankly, let's face facts. It's Mead, and it is not going to get worse by sitting. It's only going to get better. And so we're looking at that. Still had somebody wanting to trade some firearms out for Mead. Can't do that. Firearms don't buy us gear. That's the only reason we're doing what we do. Maybe a few other things. I don't know. I've talked about it for a while. Might be in the market of picking up some goats because they're fun to wrestle. No, I'm lying. Actually, picking up some goats because thinking about getting off in the cheese direction. At least, and I think we've mentioned this before. Here's the problem: is the regulation that exists. Look, I'm all for food regulations. There are too many people getting poisoned and shit, but they're always getting poisoned by like romaine lettuce and like fucking potatoes or radishes or some shit like that. It's not usually by cheese. I get it. Cheese is basically like weaponized food if it goes wrong. But by the way, I will say that trying to establish the means to make cheese to send to people in the state of New Mexico and actually in the USA at large is not impossible, but pretty tough. So anyway, there we go. You just got a message from Brandon. Okay. So what we're looking at is maybe at some point we might try to get into the little cheese game, maybe, but God, it's the regulation overhead is stifling the creativity. So maybe that'll happen, maybe not. You know what we can do? We can probably go ahead and go to the third phase of what our operation was going to be, and that would be buying a forge and forging some weapons, doing some blacksmithing and shit like that. I understand that that's kind of a trade, and you have to learn it as you go. But iron's cheap, so maybe that'd be a place to start. I don't know. If you have some ideas where we should go with that shit in order to be able to fund our musical pursuits, I would go ahead and I would take recommendations. That's fine. All right, that's the Mead side of it. Let's get over to the metal side. Now, here's the thing: is that the releases that are out today, and by the way, there are some very strange ones. If you're looking to get on your, this is the 4th of May. You know, everybody calls it Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Yeah. There's actually something that's a little crazy. It's a genre that I was not aware of. They call it Star Wars metal. It is Galactic Empire Episode 2. Because apparently there must be an episode 1 out there somewhere. But checking it out, they basically take existing Star Wars music and then put like metal over the top of that. It's weird and crazy, and what are you going to do? But nonetheless, though, that's out today. There's an experimental band by the name of Isan, also experimental black metal. That might very well be some weird shit you might associate with Star Wars Day, and that's fine. Other things going on today, there's a lot of weird metal going on that I'm not a fan of. A lot of black metal, a lot of grindcore. Not going to do it. A lot of death metal. Skinned has a new one out today. That's fine. I'm aware of them. Not a big fan. Also, a few other ones going on. Here's one I don't understand why it kind of made a few the stops around the circuit on my info today on new releases, and that's Shinedown. Well, Shinedown used to be a little heavier, a little more, they're a little more alternative, I guess. I don't know. Certainly not metal. Man, I listened to about 3 tracks today off of their new one. It's called Attention, Attention. that shit's nothing but radio pop. So Shinedown decided, after making some reasonably good music, we're going to make some money. Good for them. All right, and as I talked about, it is the new release day on the single from Alice in Chains, The One You Know. Dropped last night about 10:30, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. Good shit. Get on YouTube, check it out, because that's going to be coming up on the next record release from them, which I believe is supposed to be out by the end of summer. So, man, you know what? If you're talking about a Perfect Circle putting out a record this year, you're talking about Tool putting out a record this year, talking about Alice in Chains putting out a record this year, God, I thought 2017 was a big year. 2018 might be the shit. Actually, as a matter of fact, Tool, they're like kind of finishing their drum tracking right now. They'll have a record out, honestly. It's going to be October, November. That's going to be coming out. And good Lord Almighty, what an album. The expectations, the problem is the expectations are going to be huge on that. But, all right. Let's get to this. I don't know if you're aware of it. Jim Jeffries, I think he's an Australian dude, I believe. And he's got a show, I think, on, one of the streaming services, and I forget which one. But the reason I bring this up, he had on kind of an interesting guest. Kerry King from Slayer was on Jim Jeffries' show last night. Used the term incel. There's a lot of you who don't know what that is. And if you're among, and I didn't know what it was till like a week ago, it's short for involuntary celibate. It's a whole bunch of young white dudes apparently can't get no action, so they get violent. They hate women, by the way, and they basically hold it against women, the fact that they can't get no action. Well, here's the funny thing is that, so Jim Jeffries kind of had a segment on it and introduced Kerry King on the whole thing. You might want to get on there. You can find it on, it is on YouTube. And Kerry King kind of gave a whole dressing down kind of to that particular community, going on and on and on about how he was able to sleep with hundreds of women in his lifetime. So, good for Kerry King addressing the incel bastards, which, by the way, is tied also to the idiot in Toronto that ran over a bunch of people. Whatever. Okay, moving on. MMA, because I'm trying to keep this thing a little bit on the reasonable side this evening so Brandon doesn't have to do a crazy upload off of free Wi-Fi up in Wyoming in order to put this up tonight. A few things going on. Over in Bellator, Scott Coker is working on a Rampage versus Wanderlei Silva 4. That's what we want to see. Guys that fought 3 times already, let's watch them fight 4 times. These guys are all like my age or a little younger. There you go. Ronda Rousey, people are still, the MMA side, they've got a weird predilection of trying to focus on Ronda Rousey and her return. I don't think she's coming back. And here's why. Ronda Rousey has a job. She works for the WWE. She makes, by the way, easily 5 times the money she was making in the UFC. Easily. And then people are still like, hey, so Ronda, when you coming back? She's moved on. The rest of you probably should move on as well. Conor McGregor, that's always the big one there that moves the needle. Conor McGregor is not going to be probably looking at anything coming down from the UFC. It's going to depend on what happens kind of in the civil court, or actually the criminal court, because actually, he's not looking at civil charges. He's looking at criminal charges right now. Civil charges would probably follow, but apparently the UFC is going to defer to what happens out of the courts in New York. So here's what I'm thinking. If he goes out and lawyers up with the best lawyers money can buy, which he will, he may get off. Here's the thing. I don't think he can get off. The video footage is pretty damning. But I think he might be able to get off on some probation shit. Trust me. If you've got some of the high-priced lawyers that he has got, well, look at the whole thing that's going on with the president right now. If you pay for really, really good lawyers, it takes a while for people to catch up with you, or you just flat out get off. McGregor might be pretty much in that camp. And if he gets just kind of a probation put on him by the state of New York, trust me, he is going to be fighting this coming summer, likely as not. And that's if they don't kick the whole thing way, way down the road. All right, one other one's coming up, UFC 226, if you can believe Ariel Helwani. And I get it if you don't, but I'm excited about UFC 226, and here's why. And that is that Max Griffin, yeah, he's a good fighter. Dude is set, probably likely to face Curtis Millender for UFC 226. The reason Curtis Millender comes to mind, he's the guy that fought in the UFC Austin event that Brandon and I went down and saw in person. The dude has got some crazy John Jones-like skills, and that's what people compare him to because he's way taller than the welterweight division should probably call for. This guy's got the size on him, height-wise, of a light heavyweight, throws the elbows. He's got great striking skills and just kind of an overall badass. So I think that that's going to be something that's really, really interesting to see. The other guy that fought at UFC Austin that we saw, and that is James Vick, probably the most disrespected fighter that's only ever had one loss fighting in the UFC. Guy can't get himself a top 10 fight. He's going to be fighting Paul Felder coming up, so excited about that one. All right, now if you're a Bellator guy, well, what are you going to do? Fedor Emelianenko fought last weekend, beat Frank Mir. We were hoping on this show that Frank Mir was going to get the win. Not the case. Well, he is going to be fighting Chael Sonnen. Bellator's UFC 198 event is going to be going on. It's taking place apparently in Rosemont, Illinois. Oh, wait, no, that was actually the last one. The next one's going to be coming later this year. They haven't actually announced where it's going to take place. So anyway, he beat Frank Mir. Fedor beat Frank Mir last weekend in Illinois. The next one's going to be coming up. I guarantee you it's going to be somewhere on the East Coast. It's going to be like probably New York City, I think. Otherwise, I think that's where the money is at. I don't think that Bellator is going to put this fight in L.A., certainly probably not in Las Vegas. But so we're going to be looking for that. It will be a pay-per-view, mark my words, on that one. So there we go. That's it. Probably, like I said, I was trying to keep this one a little bit short, a little bit manageable for time for Brandon. Kind of like an old school one, back when we used to try to keep things under 30 minutes long. That's what we're going to be doing here on this one right here. We're already just over 20-something, 23 minutes or so. Okay, well, so what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up, make my picks here shortly. Just wanted to make sure we're providing some content. We've not missed a week, I think, since we started, and I don't want to start a trend of that now. It'd be easy to skip this week since Brandon's not able to be here. It'd be easy to skip next week since I'm probably not going to be able to do the podcast. It'd be easy to do that, and in which case then we go 3 weeks without any content for you guys. That's just kind of fucked up for people that like to tune in for doing what we do. So that being the case, make sure you get on YouTube. Make sure you check out Alice in Chains, The One You Know. That thing is, if it's a taste of what's to come from Alice in Chains this late summer when they put their next record out. Whew. Now, the one complaint I've heard, people saying, it sounds too polished. Yeah, well, maybe. Other people saying, yeah, well, I haven't liked Alice in Chains since Lane died. Well, actually, that's interesting because Lane kind of checked out 6 years before he died. So technically, that means you would have to go back to about 1996. So then you're talking 22 years ago is the last time you liked Alice in Chains. I begin to question your fandom if you're one of those guys. Tough shit. Truth hurts. All right, let's move on into some of the picks for the week. On the drinking side, again, it's our sponsor this week. Pendleton 1910, a fine Canadian rye whiskey. Pick that one up just about anywhere you go. I was actually going to pick up some Jack today, and I talked myself out of it, probably wisely so. And actually 1910 and Budweiser combine pretty well if you want to have the full experience going on. Over on the metal side, again, Alice in Chains, The One You Know. I know it's a single. I don't give a shit. Play it fucking 40 times. It's fine. If you don't care for that, go find something else to listen to. It's all good. Oh, and by the way, a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about Black Cherry Stone. Did I mention this one last week? I don't know. My brother Daryl had actually pointed out, he's like, who the hell are these guys? They're top notch. If you're in Southern Rock, maybe check that shit out. Other than that, as far as the MMA picks, there are no MMA picks. There's no UFC event this week. Next week, UFC event coming out of Brazil. There's going to be a title fight going on in that one. I don't know. I think the rest of that card is kind of going to depend on whether it's a make or break. Certainly, I'm not terribly excited about the title fight, but it'll be okay. Raquel Pennington is going to try to get herself a championship at 135. We'll see. There's a beast at 135 in women's bantamweight. So that's what we have for this week around. Again, next week likely might very well just be Brandon by his lonesome, and which is fine. If I'm able to do it, I'll be happy to sit in. But in the meantime, get out and check out your local music scene if you have one. Other than that, go ahead and get yourself educated and check out some good tunes on YouTube this week. Again, Alice in Chains, the one you know. And that's kind of where I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for this week so I can get it off to Brandon and he can package it up all pretty and get it out to you people here on the eve of Cinco de Mayo. Speaking of which, don't drink Corona tomorrow unless that's kind of your beer of choice. That's white people shit right there. Drink Corona on Cinco de Mayo. That's all. All right. That's all for the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast. Enjoy your week. Back at it again next Friday. Hi, honey.